Guys, I have the intuition about why we have many absences today. Probably because of studio, right?
Yeah.
So raise your hand if you have your studio presentation ready for today. You're ready, that's good. Okay, so you feel and you think you will succeed? Yeah. Oh, so remember, this is not a studio class, but I'm just trying to keep it short and make a little bit of time just in case that our team comes. But uh, but remember that in studio, so you have to be at 1 p.m. in lab. So we strongly recommend you to, you know, before 1 p.m. in your desk in your free rooms. And we strongly recommend if you have not printed yet, I hope that you already did it. So you have to rush at 12, 1:45 will finish to
Presentations start at 1, right?
yeah, start one. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Isaac. Okay, let's start with one. We'll start with the topic of the class. So I really want to ask you to be more engaged than before. Sorry, when we have so many absences, it's much more difficult for professors who are human beings. You know, we need engagement.
We thrive on engagement.
Professors don't realize that.
Yeah.
We're human persons. We're human beings. So human beings need interaction. So we are presenting today a very important topic. Probably one of the most important one this semester. I would say that this class is like a tipping point in my opinion. I'm not very good in Robert.
Yes.
So we were discussing about how things we were messing up, and we will discuss the big issue of American urbanization. I would say
Yeah.
the most important one, the most urgent thing for American urbanization. We already know that you did the discussion, and but at the same time, we're trying to be a little more optimistic. We will present certain or discuss rather than present certain alternatives to game the system to see if we can have a little more affordability in this society. So being said that, the stage is all yours to have, I mean, thank you for being here. It's such an excellent. Go ahead.
Okay. So 6 people have responded. How about the rest of you?
Okay, it's like the stations of yours and Sasha and Isaac.
All right, so the topics this week of the readings, we thought there was a lot of talk about how the more wealthy or the more powerful tend to restructure the cities to their liking. So like the beats, hungry, enclaves, and remember the regarding gerrymandering?
Yes. The like zoning and districts and how people in power versus people may begin to inform how the urban structure begins. But our question is, who has the most say in these aspects of the cities? We picked 4 different aspects: districts, landscaping, housing, transportation. So just based off of each item, what do you think? Who has the most power? And then do you think people decide the planning that goes into these different aspects?
Yeah. So for each aspect, it's either more people have say and they have less power or more power, or is it less people with more power or less power?
18 have responded. There are more than 18 people in the room. Oh, there's only 21. 2 of them are up here. So I think we're good. That's just depressing. Out of 48, right?
Yeah, we're out of 48, yeah.
Studio is the most important course, and you don't have to come to the other courses, they're optional. True or false?
False.
False. You can repeat the junior year either in part or in whole, independent of. Okay. And attendance doesn't matter, does it? True or false?
True. I mean, no,
False, yes. People take this course over again and we don't attend enough of the course. So what are the key issues that Ignacio and I should help advance today?
Maybe if possible, how we as a collective can take more control over the urban fabric of our cities. If that's even able to, something that we can grab from the people who are more powerful.
Yeah, so the helplessness that we feel, what's the remedy for that helplessness? Can architects actually identify opportunities for changing the way things go? Wow. That is right in the sweet spot of what we hope to do in this program and this course. Are there specific questions that you guys feel we need to answer? Yeah.
I'd like to know more about like I guess it's specifically pertaining to this like question of like goal versus power. And I feel like they have like a general understanding that the people of this country have power through our right to vote and our right to like participate in government and that way. But like the community land trust reading kind of showed a different way for us to like control and operate our land. And I guess I'd like to understand more like the nuances of how this system came to be and like how it's put us in this position.
Wow. And I didn't contact you and ask you to ask that question, did I?
No.
Okay. Just want to make that clear. What else?
And I want to learn more on, I guess, how districts are controlled by power versus people.
So districts may be zoning.
Yeah, zoning wise.
Zoning is a big one.
Because I've known it for a while, but I want to dive deeper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I want to learn more how, it's zoning is controlled.
Yeah, that's good.
Area.
Yeah, yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have one. So I'm gonna talk as an immigrant. I'm always surprised how in this country, the value of the land is that important. Property of the land is that important.
Important in terms of
Of
value of price
In terms of importance of
or culturally?
culturally.
Culturally.
Owning a land is culturally really important.
Okay.
In society. And we have that naturalized coming from another country. I would say that this is not, it should be different, it could be different. So the way it's actually our value as a society, actually our value as a person here depends of the ownership, the land that we have. There is a close relationship.
Yeah.
And this is, again, this is not, it's just American thing.
Right. It's not universal.
It's not universal.
Yeah.
And so probably this is not an answer for this week, but I think you have to explain next one why this is happening.
Oh,
When you talk about capitalism,
That's hard.
you have to explain.
Okay. Okay. We'll try.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll try.
Any others? Okay. Thank you. And thank you for making up for the missing of Oliver and who's John. Yeah.
Actually, I think that survey was very good.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised, not surprised, but it reveals something that is great to be understand, to know, is that almost all of them are in this quadrant where you have more power and let people are basically what needs the most. But I'm surprised that two people say that the landscape is almost moving towards more power in the people. So landscape
It's
is
smaller scale, so maybe, and less money.
probably it's less money for you,
Yeah.
probably the developer can make less money from, that could be.
It's an after, landscaping is an afterthought, so maybe it's an opportunity.
Yeah, because it's naturally collected.
It's the leftover space, maybe after it's built, we can mobilize and take
Yeah,
control.
yeah,
of it.
and something that I will discuss today is developers are not seeing that landscape is a tool to increase land value. So, it's not yet discovered, but I think if here they will discover that landscape is a way, it's a tool to increase land value. So many developers are not getting that yet. But they will, I believe.
And in the
Okay.
meantime, it's an opportunity for community empowerment.
It's an opportunity to community empowerment, you're right.
So that's a hint at what to do for Tuesday.
Yeah,
Right? Because I'm a student. I don't care about all this. All I care about is please help me identify a specific image to analyze for Tuesday.
Mhm.
Right? So I get that.
I agree. That's a good one, huh? Thank you,
Yeah,
Robert.
landscape.
We are discovering with this survey that landscape could be an opportunity to increase people power
Yeah.
and how we move, because it's the closest one to the problem.
Right. We want to move it here and then we want to move it here.
Uh-huh.
Right? This is the direction we want to go in. We want to have more democratic empowerment. And we want the power. People want the power.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Easy, right?
Yeah. So thank you. You have a task to do at the end. Give them a hand. So Sasha and Isaac, you have something to do at the end. Right.
Okay. So I'm gonna try in the next 45 minutes, I'm gonna try 40 or 45 minutes, I'm gonna try to do justice to this question. This is a tough topic for humans and even tougher topic for architects. And we're changing the name. You notice the name changed from LA School to social justice, and now it's social injustice, because the main thing we're looking at is really to Peter's question: how did this happen? How did we get here? And to the extent that we need clues in how to solve it, it is useful to understand how we got here. And so I'm going to be very specifically looking at that. And at the same time, it's important to understand that it's a strategy of the powerful, the people, the elite power holders in the United States especially, but really everywhere in the world. It's a strategy of elite power holders to convince everyone else that resistance is futile, that you don't have power, and you can't change things. Only people with power currently have the ability to have any impact on what we do, and they benefit from you believing that's true. But until elections are canceled, elections still matter. And in much of the world, India provides a dramatic example. Voting can change everything. Voting changed everything in the poster child star of this program of urbanism. The poster child is Barcelona and Medellin, Colombia. These poster children show that one election can transform how these things play out and shift power to people and establish it long term to solve these problems. These problems are solvable, and to a large extent, it's architects who have the capacity to play a role. Architects can't do it alone. Sorry, Frank Gehry. Sorry, Bilbao, the mythology of the Bilbao effect. Architects cannot solve the world's problems alone. But arguably, I'm looking at, I'm sorry, don't be sad. It's okay. You don't have to be, the pressure's off. You don't have to be the superstar quarterback that saves the world. We do things in collaboration here in the 21st century. That's what works. And we have the internet to connect to people in ways that was never possible before. The way we solve problems is working in teams. So just as architecture alone cannot solve these problems, arguably one of the working hypotheses of this course and this concentration, the world's problems cannot be solved. They are insolvable without the collaboration of architecture. So congratulations, you are in a position to play a role in some piece of the puzzle. You don't have to occupy the entire front line of movement that changes the world. You just need to find an open spot and link arms with the people right and left of you. You take on housing affordability in Roxbury, and you link arms with people taking care of housing affordability in other places, and you're just part of the world of collaborators who are just taking one step forward. If you can take one step forward in one part of your career, then we're good to go. But before we do that, I want to put Tyrese on the spot and talk for a second about the discussion. So Tyrese picked, is it okay, Tyrese?
Yeah.
Tyrese picked the Richard Rothstein Color of Law. And he says, oh, I read this. I already read this. But instead of saying, I already read this, I don't need to do this for my reading. I'll do the Mike Davis reading. No, he said, I read this and I have some burning questions that continue to bother me. And so his prompt to AI is, okay, that's all fine and good. But now what? What can be done? What then must we do? What strategies are available? Am I getting this right? What strategies are available to us to actually solve the problem, which happens to overlap very solidly with questions that others of you have. The AI responded, here are some things. Policies should focus not only on preventing future discrimination, but also addressing the accumulated disadvantages created by past segregation. Are we allowed to do that? Well, the powerful would like us to believe the past is the past. The Supreme Court, current Supreme Court, would like us to believe, yeah, the past is the past. It's done. You can't pass a law like the 14th Amendment after the Civil War that says we need to make sure that historically enslaved populations are represented in our government. You can't have a law that says that. That's racial discrimination. And so the Supreme Court a few weeks ago said, you can't protect the racial categories of Congress through the way you draw districts, because that's racial discrimination. And so our barely off-white members of Congress are about to become completely white members of Congress because of this Supreme Court decision. So it's not a slam dunk that we acknowledge past harm and move forward to remedy past harm. So that's already a very difficult thing, a very difficult prospect. By creating opportunities for wealth accumulation, educational advancement, and residential mobility across generations, such a framework could gradually reduce the long-term effects of government-sponsored segregation. Sounds good, but the arguments lined up against that are unabashedly these days, people are saying out loud in public, they're saying, we can't have support for childcare. We can't have public support for mass transportation because that's a wealth transfer from white, wealthy people to non-white, less wealthy people. So we can't do that. That's communism. So it's hard to do even the simplest things when it's okay to say racist things. And so this is an example of starting the challenge of your AI agent way downstream from simply summarizing. We're really asking for solutions and then getting into that discussion. So Tyrese, what am I missing? What else should be said?
I think this also ties back to the topic we touched in previous lectures, speaking about information being in an abundant and how that kind of diminishes who are the amount of people that actually have power in making a difference in this.
Right. Which touches on what the Mentimeter survey was dealing with. Okay, so here are the topics today, moving very quickly. This issue of people versus power, another way we talk about that in this course has been the individual choices people make as single humans or clients working with architects. So choices in this case is really grouped together with projects. And then there's the operating system, which, so referring back to that slide that says project, operating system, project system culture, remember that? And it used to be, we assumed that cultures are natural, they form, and they result in laws and regulations and the rules of operating systems. And then clients require that architects simply follow instructions, and it's determined from right to left. Cultures determine systems, systems determine what architects can and do produce. All right, so that's the assumption. It didn't work out so well for us. Gave us climate change, social injustice. And so architecture has been going through a transformation in the last few decades. And what we do at Wentworth in the thesis program, students identify projects capable of impacting operating systems. And this is a really exciting shift in what architects do. And the presumption is that Wentworth architects go off into the profession and continue doing this. That's a harder thing to accomplish, but it might be in very subtle, small ways, or maybe someday big ways. So another terminology that we're introducing here is structure and agency. Individual agency, I have choices. I can do things that shifts the outcome of the world, versus structures restrict and determine outcomes, and there's nothing we can do about it. So the good news on this is that it's not, well, the bad news, we watch movies, and the typical hero action movie is that despite the structure, despite the Death Star and the Empire, Luke has individual personal agency and can overcome these structural barriers and save the rebellion, right? So, and you can substitute your favorite hero from comic books, movies, or books, and it's more or less the same thing, that individual agency actually can overcome all odds. And that's how Hollywood works. So this leads to, how do architects play a role in this? Well, architects create the structures. Architects they make rooms with two doors. And if I want to go out there, I can go through this door or that door. I can't go through here. So the structure of the room limits the agency of the people in the room in much bigger ways. And hopefully, the clearest one example is housing. There are structural forces that limit the kind of house you can live in. And there's, but an even clearer example is transportation. And so this week and next week are very much linked in this idea of structure and agency. It used to be that people born in the United States had a very high percentage chance of social mobility, doing better than their parents. So people born in the 40s were almost guaranteed to do better than their parents. People born in the 50s, your grandparents, still had a really good chance. But when we get to your parents' generation, the chances that they're doing better than their parents go down. And what about people born in 2004? Is that you? Yeah, I think they are. What about people born in 2004? Do you think you're back up here? Or do you think you're back down here? This is a structure that you have inherited. This is a structure that characterizes the probability of your life chances. And that's a vocabulary that sociologists use that's useful. Life chances. Like you use that in your work, right? Yeah. And so talking about the American dream, upward mobility is actually continuing. This is just another way of showing that upward mobility is becoming more and more rare. And this is contrary to what the lessons are from the mythology of the American dream. The Horatio Alger stories that someone born in poverty actually become, in these stories, he goes from being a newspaper boy, making a penny a day, to becoming a senator in the US Senate. So this is the inspiring mythology of the American dream. But it's increasingly difficult. And so we want to talk about the difference between income and wealth. Income is how much money you make. Wealth is how much money you have. You see the difference? It used to be that people would graduate from college or not, and they would go to work, and they would pay their expenses every month. And then they would have this thing we call leftover money. It's true. It used to happen. And that money goes into savings, and with that savings, you buy a house. That's what used to happen. That doesn't happen so much anymore. And wealth, what happens now is people inherit wealth. I think there's supposed to be sound. So what happens now is wealth appears to come through inheritance now.
The wealth gap between the richest Americans and everyone else is staggering. In the 1970s, the wealthiest 1% owned about 20% of the nation's total household wealth. Now they own over 35%. Much of their gains over the last 40 years have come from a dramatic increase in the value of shares stock. For example, if someone
no time for this. And you should watch this video at your leisure. It's a very powerful visualization of wealth distribution in the United States. it's staggering and devastating and out of date. So whatever dramatic impact this has, just understand that the current situation is much more extreme than depicted in this. So I'm not even going to bother showing you because it's out of date. So every week there's new statistics about how quickly wealth is being siphoned up to the very top of the wealth. And it turns out that it's the wealthiest 300 families in the United States that are disproportionately accumulating the wealth of the country, which has the perverse impact of increasing the gross domestic product per capita. So on paper, the average income of people in the United States keeps going up. But the reality is, for a vast majority of people in the United States, the wealth of a family and the income of the family is staying steady or declining slightly. So this explains a lot about current attitudes towards affordability. And so this whole situation is, what are the purpose of this, and our role as architects is to identify what arrangements that we are involved in can possibly shift this equation. And it turns out that homeownership is the big one. And so I'm going to do this very quickly. How much money will you make when you graduate? Do you know? You're good.
It's like 70.
That is about the average for Wentworth graduates. How about architecture? Is it more or less?
Architecture is more like 50 to 60,000.
Yeah, 52. 51,900 per year if you get a master's degree. What if you don't get a master's degree? It's 51,600 or 300. So it's ever so slightly different, at least upon graduation. The value of the master's degree accumulates over time because it positions you to take on leadership roles in a way that the undergraduate program doesn't. So okay. So the end point of this exercise is really next week's topic. Are you going to be driving to work 5-10 years from now? Are you driving to work, and how long is your commute? And the context is driving is one of the biggest contributors to global climate change. How dare you defile the planet by driving to work alone? But wait, structural forces are conspiring against me. If I could afford to live in a place where I could walk to work or bicycle to work or take transit, I would. But the structural forces are operating against me. I don't have a choice. My personal agency is constrained by the structural forces. So here are the structural forces. You're a Wentworth graduate. You're one of the lucky ones getting a valuable professional degree, but it costs money to go to school. How much are your student loans? The statistics about student loans are we report the average. So for undergraduate and graduate student loans, individual student loans, I've talked to students who have over $200,000 in student loans by the time they graduate. Some students graduate debt-free, and so there's a lot of noise in the signal. This is an exercise. These slides are available to you. You can go through this exercise on your own. The websites are often put in the speaker notes. So if you have $80,000, let's just say $80,000 in student loan debt, what are your monthly payments? $800 a month over 10 years. This is actually an out-of-date interest rate. Interest rates are higher now. So how much of a house can you buy? Well, when we did this last year, you could you can afford, let's say it's you're 10 years after graduation, you're making 70,000. You marry someone who is also an architect, so you have two incomes. And you can afford a house that costs $460,000 last year. This year, it's down to $390,000. So what does that look like? Oh, yeah, sorry, if you're a woman, you're not going to make as much, so you need to adjust that. And so we look at the Zillow map of properties in this price level of 400,000. And there aren't that many available. And then you look at what's available, it's really far away and it's not much, it's not a very attractive prospect. It's probably less than what you had hoped would be possible. Sorry about this. So change your terms, refinance your student loans, pay off over 30 years. You end up paying much more in the end than you would if you paid it off over 10 years, but it allows you to buy more housing. It goes up, if you shift from a 10-year student loan to a 30-year student loan, suddenly you can buy a better, more of a house, and there's more options and it's slightly more attractive. So these are the structural forces involved of how much you can afford based on your income. But all of this presumes something that we glossed over in the previous slide. When you buy a house, it assumes that you're putting down a 20% down payment on that house, right? And there are closing costs as well as the down payment. So if you're buying a house, a $400,000 house, you need to come up with a down payment of about $90,000. Are you making enough money as an architect while you rent or live in your parents' house that allows you to save up enough money to pay a $90,000 down payment? In this case, if you're buying closer to $500,000 house, the down payment is $110,000, $120,000. Now, there are first-time homeowner programs where you can cut that in half, basically, by you qualify for more borrowing, less down payment. You can pay a 10% down payment instead of 20%. So you don't need as much cash in a bag that you hand over at the closing. Does this make sense? Do you know about down payments? Okay, so this is the rest of the lecture, which is, where do these down payments come from? Can you save enough over the course of 5-10 years of working life to save up for your down payment?
You're paying how much we need?
This much.
Yeah, okay.
It's $100,000.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's hard. Because most Americans, unlike in this previous period of the post-war boom, between World War II and 1980, during that boom, people could take home their income and save each month and save up and buy a house, save up, go on vacation, save up, send their kids to college, save up all kinds of things. They were not as vulnerable. But since 1980, increasingly, even quite well compensated professions like architecture and engineering have had a harder time saving anything. And it's more likely that people are putting their monthly living expenses on a credit card and accumulating debt at a very high interest just to get by month to month. And so when it comes time to buying a house, people who buy houses are people who have access to family wealth. So who has access to family wealth is the big question. I'm going to skip the Chetty part. So this is, so remember, this is the question that takes us to this next part. Who has access to family wealth? And this brings us to the color of law. It turns out the punchline of color of law is not just it's hard to find a place to live if you're not white, historically and to the present, but it's pretty much impossible to afford anything if your family was the victim of this discrimination, of this policy. So let's move through this very quickly. A lot of you read it, so you understand. But this whole book was written in response. It was motivated by a 1976 Supreme Court decision that said, wait, redlining was not intended to be discriminatory. If it were, then it would be operating system discrimination. It wasn't an operating system. It wasn't a law that you couldn't rent or sell to non-white families. So it was just a natural secondary byproduct, an unavoidable consequence of well-intended rules. And that's what they determined, that it was de facto, not de jure. It was a consequence of something else. It wasn't deliberate segregation. So Richard Rothstein looked into it and said, oh yeah? First of all, this is the language that was included in the lease agreements for communities, subdivisions that were built after World War II, which will link us to next week's topic when we get to automobile dependency. These subdivisions that sprouted up around cities after World War II, they pretty much had these types of clauses in them that you could not allow these houses to be occupied by any person other than of the right white race. The exception is you can have household servants. This doesn't apply if that person is a servant in your household. Okay. This became illegal in 1965, but by then these types of arrangements were so embedded in the landscape. And so this is a red line map of Boston. And it's not really a red line, it's really a red zone. Banks, by federal policy, the Federal Home Ownership Insurance Corporation could not allow any loans to be given for household improvements in these neighborhoods because it was considered a bad investment. So to protect the investment value of the federal home ownership program, you couldn't make loans to these neighborhoods. This is where we are right now. Where are we? I see it. Here we are. There's Wentworth right there. So this was a red line zone. This neighborhood was off limits to any homeownership financial assistance. This was questionable, and then this was okay. So the wealthier neighborhoods, yes, housing finance was okay. And so this is basically Richard Rothstein's argument. And this is in 1940s, 1950s, and here's the racial distribution today. And so its effects live on. And here it is in Detroit. Can you tell where the boundary between Detroit and the wealthier suburbs are? And the poster child, well, here's New York, even more intense, and Chicago. And the poster child is Los Angeles, which is the link from last week's topic of American Dream Overseas. A lot of the design strategies and planning strategies that we see overseas, we can trace them back to Los Angeles. And so this week and next week, we're looking at things in the United States and specifically Los Angeles.
Why?
Why? This is just more, this is the statistic to keep an eye on in the coming decades. What are we doing structurally to shift this inequity between median white household wealth and median black household wealth? And keep in mind that the consequences of this are not just who gets to own a home. It's also who gets to educate their children. Look around you in the classrooms of Wentworth. Who's missing from the classroom? Who should be sitting in these seats, but cannot sit in these seats because of structural forces that were inherited from the post-war period and before, really since the Civil War. Questions? We'll get into these forces next week. The legal exclusion of non-white families was just one component of a much larger complex of forces that resulted in the single biggest transformation of the North American landscape in history, bigger than even the original settler formation. These 4 reparations. So we tend to only be aware of the median unemployment rate of US cities. But if you look at the distribution according to race, it tells a very different story. So beware of the gross domestic product per capita in the United States. It is, let's just call it a lie. When you look at these statistics, it is also a lie. You need to disaggregate according to the lines of ongoing discrimination and the forces, the ongoing forces, the echoes of past discrimination. So who gets a bachelor's degree? Oh, looks like it's going up, not so bad, until you look at this. That looks pretty dark. Okay, income is rising, pretty good. Oops, not so fast, not so much. Median home ownership, we're doing great here in the United States. Oops, not so great and getting worse. Incarcerated males, okay, crime happens. What? Are you kidding? And so these statistics are the ones that we should be paying attention to. Los Angeles is a test case of what architects and planners do in the response to white fear of difference. Gated communities, we did enough of this looking overseas that we don't need to go into it. Frank Gehry, those of you who read the LA City of Quartz book understand how Gary's architecture is largely an architecture of fortress making. And it really, at the heart of it, it was this well-intended instrument of zoning. Zoning is something you will deal with every day, all day long throughout your careers. You should understand that the roots of zoning are racial segregation. Here in the United States, zoning is there to produce segregated neighborhoods as an unintended consequence of wealth and value preservation.
To figure out how American cities got this way, we go back to the 1920s and 30s, when the modernist planning establishment began tightening zoning regimes that neatly separated commercial, industrial, and residential buildings. The stated purpose of zoning laws was to prevent nuisances and pollution where people live, but also to guide developers to build and buyers to live in a single-family home, widely viewed by city planners as incubators of the ideal American family. To do this, city governments carved out wide swaths of city land and confined them to single-family homes, typically restricting residency to one family. And this presented some major problems.
So when you zone something for single-family homes as opposed to multifamily homes, it has the effect of making housing units more expensive.
That's economist Sandy E. Kaler. He says that one of the main effects of single-family zoning was to lower the availability of low-income housing.
I mean, very simply, it's more complicated than this, but if you have a lot which can accommodate one big house, let's say for 4,000 square feet, if you could divide that up into 4 smaller units of 1,000 square feet each, the individual units could be sold or rented out at a lower price.
Take a look at this zoning map of San Francisco, with the single-family zoning colored in red. The city is dominated by single-family zone housing, and that's a major reason why San Francisco's housing costs are the highest in the United States. Cities across the country have begun to build out by heavily regulating the ability to build up, creating scarcity at attractive city centers, and bidding up the price closer to city downtowns.
And so the supply has not kept up with this increasing demand. You want people to live in dwellings that have a minimum size, but the consequence of that is people who can't afford that minimum size won't be able to live in those dwellings. So what are they going to do? Is there a logical stopping point to minimum housing sizes? Why don't you make the minimum house size 2,000 square feet? Then we'd all live in palaces, or 4,000 square feet. Let's make everybody in New York City live in a single family home. That would solve the problem.
Single-family zoning laws in the 20s and
He's
30s
kidding.
went a long way to realize the vision of cities held by modernist planners. But they weren't enough. And by the 1950s and 60s, cities weren't just blocking traditional urban neighborhoods from being built. Armed with new federal backing, cities gained license to rezone and condemn neighborhoods as blank, often wiping out entire neighborhoods for minor building design infractions, like not having wide enough lawns separating each dwelling. This had the added and often deliberate effect of forcing out poorer minority residents from the city, who tended to live in denser multifamily homes that were disliked by most modernist planners.
The explicit reason was to safety. Later on, many of these zoning code were used to segregate populations, either explicitly by race or cultural backgrounds.
In place of these neighborhoods, the modernists favored further single-family home building. They also favored long, wide streets and narrow sidewalks, with the goal of reshaping American cities around the automobile.
That's next week. So I'm going to stop there.
Yeah. But it's difficult. Yeah. So while it's shifting, I will tell a personal story, and then I will ask you a specific question. So please listen to me. So the personal story that I was really lucky to buy a house a few years ago. But the issue that I had is that I didn't have the 30, because this idea that you need to have 30% down payment, it's not set in stone, it's not a rule, it's not a law, it's a practice. So this is typically the way you get a home. At that moment, I only had 5%. This is the money that I only have 5% of down payment. And I tried to stay in the same neighborhood where I was, because I didn't want to change my kids from school, because the schools were good for them at that moment. And we know that the school is everything. And we know that something that is happening in this neighborhood, that different neighborhoods have different school systems, and there are more investment depending on the I don't know if you get that. It's the type of neighborhood also connect with the type of school that they have. So when I decided to make an offer, and my strategy was to offer much more than the cost of the house, because I was able to get a higher loan in order to reduce my down payment, because I didn't have 30% at the time, I only had 5%. And you know what my developer told me? Not the developer, the real estate agent. She told me, you cannot get a home here because, and this is a true story, huh? Because this is a white neighborhood. You belong to another. So this is something that is
What?
that happened to me. And
In what year? Was this,
this is
1932?
No, this is 2022. And what, real. So I didn't was I now I live in a neighborhood that everybody's quiet except me.
You look white
So yeah, I'm white passing if I stay quiet. Which
if
is
you don't talk.
yeah, I try not to talk in my neighborhood. Because in
It's
order to build.
Cambridge. We love immigration.
Yeah, but that happened even in Cambridge, even in 2002, 22. So my point is that this is structurally also in our minds. So the question that I have here is, actually I'm always concerned in this lecture in this session because Robert's lecture is so meaningful. Everything that you describe is so meaningful. So I try to be at that level with these the instruments that trying to think what we can do as designers in order to game the system. This is my purpose today. So we're gonna talk a little some instruments that help us to imagine how we can game that system, how we can make the housing system more affordable. But before that, I need to connect the dots between this week and the previous one. Remember that we were discussing about designing for life, spatial opportunity. Please tell me, what is the connection between housing affordability and spatial opportunity? So one of the videos say that you cannot understand the power of housing. Why housing is so powerful? When we talk about the spatial opportunity, why this is happening? Why a person living in a former red line zone has less opportunities to increase wealth than one that is living in one labels a white area. So what is happening? Can you help me to connect housing with spatial? Yeah.
Access to the
You have actually, let me tell you that this has many answers, okay? Many answers, right? That is one. When education, we don't have time for that, but the investment of the public school system is related to the wealth of the people who are there. So you will have better education if you live in an area that have more investment. What else? If you raise your hand. Oh no. What else? What else? Yeah, Peter.
I think like the way like there was in the past like a set kind of formula for like suburban Americans to like gradually develop wealth, and that like formula is based on like pieces of land in specific areas. And so if you're not like and that's based on like where you're literally living because you're attached to that place. So if you're not attached to a place that is planned very like systematically planned for the people in that area to like accumulate wealth, then you won't.
Yeah. And also that is related to the loan system and bank. So if you know that if you have if you apply to a loan, not only for a housing loan, any loan, you apply to a loan to have a business. The zip code of your application is the most important data. It's not your bank account. It's not the amount of money that you have. It's not your connections. Actually, your connections could be. It's the zip code. They read your zip code, and if that zip code is that one, you have more opportunity to get a loan if there is a loan. There is in the bank system, they know that. You have more, there is more risk factors if you come from a particular place that is labeled as a poor community. Actually, let me tell you that this is something that is very critical in America, but it's universal in some way. So there is a book called Favela by Janice Perlman. She was rehearsing about favela. You know what is a favela? It's a self-produced, it's how Brazil calls self-produced environments. Oh, so a very poor neighborhood. Janice Perlman, she was doing research in favelas for the last 60 years. That's amazing. She was doing this research for actually 70 now. Okay. So because that book was published 10 years ago. For the last 70 years, he was researching favelas. And she concluded, look at this, because this is so impressive for me. In the history of urbanization, there are many factors that discriminate you that we're improving gradually. And she's not saying that we are good. She's saying that it's improving. So in the past, if you were a woman, you have less opportunities than if you're a woman today. She's not saying that we have gender equality. She's saying that women are better now than 60 years ago. Same thing with race. If you are an African American, you have more opportunities now than 60 years ago. We're slightly improving. We're still in racial inequality, but we're improving. Same thing with migration status, legal status. You know what is not improving at all? We have the same level of discrimination now than 60 years ago. It's the place where you live. It's the place where you live. Which connect with the other one, which is, so if you live in an area that it was redlining and that area is labeled as a poor area, you have less opportunities to access the system you have the same discrimination than 60 years ago. This is not improving at all. So there is something that I believe is very important that relates to the power of housing. It's basically your connections. This is sad to say, but it's true. If I put my feet out of my home and my neighbors can give me a job, I have more opportunities to succeed if they cannot. So it's basically network. I'm trying to connect this with previous week. Remember that the network theory that we discussed in the class of Designing for Life and Special Opportunities. So if you live in a neighborhood let me say that in capitalist terms. If the money is flowing around, you can have more money. If you live in a neighborhood where the money is flowing around, you can be invited to the block jar party or a party with your friend. You can have a person who can give you a job or can give you, I don't know, hire you for the opportunities that you have. I don't know if you remember what I say about Martin Nussbaum, professor of University of Chicago, about what human capability means. It's not your skills, it's how your skills are connected to the network. So this is what you make you succeed. See, if you live in a neighborhood where money is not flowing, you will have less opportunities to connect your skills to that neighborhood, to the society than if you live in a neighborhood. So in a neighborhood where the money flows. My point here is that housing is important, not only because of housing, but because of your connections to the system.
That's a structure.
And that's a structural. So if you live in an area that was labeled in the red zone, I like the idea of the red zone and the red line, the red zone that Robert described, your grandparents have less opportunity to be connected. They will give you the cycle of poverty. You will be in the cycle of poverty that we discussed before in this diagram. Do you remember that? Okay. So what I want to say now is that the way we deal with that is through planning documents, mapping documents, instrument of design. So intentionally, I decided to use that from Barcelona because this is happening in many places. It's more dramatic in the US, but in many places we are dividing. We are dividing the areas in zone. So this is Barcelona, this is Caracas, this is San Francisco. In all of them, we are basically designing in a way where the zoning creates this difference. It's by design, as Robert just explained you, and this is happening everywhere. And that is design. And this is, come on, I have to say something. So this class has two goals, okay? One is to explain or to discuss how we can gain the system, but also it's our responsibility to teach you the instrument that we have in urbanism, because you will be working on that in the future. So that you have to be aware that planning documents are usually having two types. So planning and zoning have usually two documents that they work together: the map and the ordinance. So they are the two documents that work together. So when you have this, it's not only that this is big, But the pink say what you can do here and say that sometimes, for example, you can only have a single pump, as the previous the guy said. But the other thing that I want to say that in addition to planning documents, we have projects. And this is where I believe architects can do a lot. So I'm gonna use this as an example, this case. So this is the Boston City Hall. I don't want to make a case about how open is that building because I like it. We will be visiting these offices June 30th. Be prepared, okay?
Field trip.
Field trip, be prepared. We have a field trip. So Jason McDonald, because he was in this university and everything he learned already, so he got a job as urban planner. But that's weird.
Was he in this class?
No, because he was a 3 years master's student.
Okay.
Yeah, but let me tell you, Jason McDonald, because of the spirit of urban connections of this Wentworth, he got a job as a planner. He being an architect.
Really?
Yeah. And he knows how to make it because of his thesis. So Wentworth degree allowed him to have a wonderful job right there. We'll be there, but this is not the topic of the class. The topic of the class is what just happened in this area. Do you know what happened recently in that area? Was just built 1 year ago. What happened there? You have any idea? Sasaki renewed that. So it was a new project of renovation that now this is a very, very fancy area. Very well developed, I would say. You have many good landscapes that allows people to engage with the area. So this is where landscape plays a role, and they published this article that this is too big and too good to fail. Architects being architects, we are so good. It's impossible that we fail. Huh? So basically what happens here, I'm gonna connect that with agglomeration economy. When you have a project like this one, what happens is that the economy agglomerates and the money flows, people wants to be there, neighborhoods start, and neighborhoods wants to be there. And you know what happened with the land? So you need to know that. What happened with the land of the surrounding areas of this area when you have this project? Please, what happened with the land? What happened with the land after the renovation of a public space like this one? That just happened. Yes.
Value goes up.
The value goes up. So you have to be aware that when you do any project, the land of the surrounding areas goes up automatically because the economy agglomerates. So, and this is what planners usually wants an architect, because actually this is Alexandra Patrick, she's an architect working planner as well. So you have to understand through zoning and through other strategies like the Bilbao effect that we discussed last year. But at the end, what matters is that when you do certain infrastructure, landscapes, public housing, whatever you build, the value of the land increases. And this is something that, guys, we need you to understand in this class, is the fact that improving of neighborhoods, improving of the sidewalk, every single good project that you are analyzing on Tuesdays comes with the increase of value. So which means that design is an opportunity to improve economy. Actually, it's the tool. And that's the reason because I have to say that this idea of landscape, what we say, as an opportunity, it's an opportunity for people to engage, but also developers sometimes get that if they improve landscape, they also have more return in their investment in their own areas. And this is something for me, if we understand that fact, in my opinion, we have a tool to gain the system. Because we have to recognize that through urban projects, we can prevent where the monies will come. And we can do something that many cities are doing around the world that is called land value capture. And this is the first tool that I want to explain to you. If my English is so bad, you can read that here, okay? Land value capture. how we can capture certain level of value that you increase. Let me explain that in simple terms. Imagine that Peter owns this land. And the land is, it costs, I don't know, let's say $100 per hectare. I have the power of an architect, working together with the government, that say, I will put this public space here. If I put this public space here, his land will increase the value. That's a fact. So we have a tool of negotiation there. Because with the design of the landscape surrounding, when I say landscape, I say every public infrastructure. It could be a school, a good school. It could be a sidewalk. It could be a landscape. Also, it could be public transportation.
A new T stop at Union
It
Square.
could be yeah, that's a good example. Have you been in Union Square? Thank you. Of Somerville. They put a new T stop of the Green Line, and automatically it is worthy to build to create a building that is now 20 stories high, 25 stories high. Yeah, exactly.
I've been there, and yeah, I agree with you what you're saying.
Yeah. So just the fact that there is a new T station there increase the land value. But what I want to highlight here is that we as a designer have a tool of negotiation now. Because I can tell Peter now, oh, I have the power to increase your income.
Your
If
wealth.
Your wealth, sorry.
And income. Yeah.
And income. I have the opportunity to increase your wealth. Your efficient wealth. So we can negotiate how we manage this increase. And what these many cities are doing is to negotiate certain land capture value for other purposes. Let me tell you that. His wealth is 100. With my intervention, his wealth will be now 200. And I can tell them, okay, of these 200, give me 10, or give me 20, for other projects, or for affordable projects. So Peter will, sorry?
For affordable housing.
For affordable housing, for example.
Yeah.
So are you getting me the power to have the land capture? Because Peter can say, no, I don't want it. Okay, I don't invest that. I don't have that investment. So he has the option, or have 180 wealth, because he will be $20 out of the 200. Or if he doesn't like that, he remains in 100, 120, and I will move to this other land and recycle it. So that is the negotiation. If it is cheating the system, this is game the system. It's playing with the system in a way that we use the increase of value of the land that happens because of capital's economy in order to have money to give money for other purposes.
Did
Like
Somerville do that?
Somerville is doing that in Union Square. So I don't know if you know that I used to be the president until last semester of Somerville Community Corporation. And many of we have 700 homes affordable in Somerville, and some of the money comes from the land value capture. Basically, they gave some of the money and they got that to Somerville Community Corporation. We are buying houses for affordability. So what I'm saying is not theory; it's happening. Okay, and there is a video here that I invite you to look at this. The videos, the link are there, that explain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options to implement land value capture. So how you can do with that in order to discuss or to remediate all the issues that Robert was talking about. So before then going deep in this land value, I need you to understand the typical design instrument that we have in urbanism. We usually have, and this is what is called normative planning. In urbanism, you can do these 5 type of things. So you can do, and I'm gonna go very quick here because this is not a big topic. It's something that you need to know in order to follow the next one. You can have design frameworks. This is the typical thing that we do in Studio 7. Studio 7 is a framework where we highlight the same infrastructure system that will increase the value of certain areas, but also create certain system of connectivity. You can do master plans completely different. A master plan, because while the design instrument regulates the most important armatures of the city, the master plans regulates everything, basically. Or you can have the quality programs, so you can make an analysis, for example, in this case with, and this is a real case, okay, you can go here to the current report if you want to go in deep. You can regulate, for example, type of porches versus type of plot, and create a catalog of interventions to prototype different type of interventions in the city. You can have design codes, so like regulate, for example, how you improve, let's say, ecological factors in the city. You can have the create site brief, for example, for competitions, like a specific site that you have a site brief and you analyze that in order to have certain specific projects. Or you can have, or you can write the sign statement that basically demand certain actions for developers. So, but all of this has been applied in the United States, and this is when the discussions come, then we still have homeless people. So we have all of these methods to design cities, but cities are still being very unaffordable. So this is a map that say that homeless people range between these numbers. This is 2025 data, which is surprising. So we have design instrument, we have amazing architect, we have the Studio 5 design studio every semester designing amazing housing, but we still have homeless people. Why? So you have a question for them, huh? About the Studio 5.
Remember Studio 5? Remember the housing we designed? Was it rental or purchase? And how much, what was the cost?
Well, do you have an idea on this? What was the cost? Peter saying no.
Wasn't part of the course.
Wasn't part, okay. This is our fault.
Yeah, it's your fault.
It's my fault as a professor. I wasn't teaching Studio 5.
You
Yes,
don't teach us good.
yeah. So what the reason because we're saying that is because oh surprise, this is the amount of homeless people that we have in America, and this is the vacant homes. Where we have in America, and this is very recent data, 650 people without home, and we have 50.1 millions of vacant homes. So actually, this research say that there is 45.9 vacant homes per homeless person. Each people that have no home have 49 homes that have no people living there. So what is the conclusion here? It's really simple. The problem is not amount of housing. We have enough houses. There are 49 houses.
46.
Sorry, thank you. There are 46 houses that are empty per homeless people in this country. We can continue doing Studio 5, and we can do housing programs, and we can start continue making and building on home. So there is something that should happen because we can have more homes and they will be these vacant homes, and people will still be homeless. So the problem is, so we talk a lot about the crisis housing in this country. This is a many reports and many views that talk about housing issues. But this data demonstrate that there is no crisis of housing availability. There are houses around, but they are empty. So then what is the problem? If the problem is not housing, how we can address this if we have houses? They are there, but they are empty. What's the problem then? So yeah, Peter.
This is my question about do you know like the methods they use to figure out how many people there are and where they are?
Oh, I don't recap right now, but the paper, the complete paper is right there. Sorry. So it's right there. So we can take a look. This is the website to the right. To the research. So how they count them, I don't recount, I don't remember.
Every town and city keeps track. They're obligated to keep
There
track.
are surveys, the specific data for this one, probably they have that for the census data, but for the census, right, okay, but again, if the problem is not housing availability, what's the problem? What do you think? Yeah?
Affordability.
Yeah, say that again? Affordability. So it's not housing availability, housing affordability. So the problem is not us to think how to build new houses. It's how we can make them more affordable. And this is a big crisis. I have to give you one short example. I have a good friend, Boris Munoz. He's a common friend.
Oh, yeah.
Boris is a famous journalist, actually. It's not any journalist. He's really famous.
Yeah.
Like he's been interviewed by CNN and BBC. You know, this type of famous guy. He used to live in New York, and he worked as the director of the Spanish edition of the New York Times in New York City. He worked in an office, in a fancy office, but that building designed by Peter Norman Foster, I believe.
Or,
Jen Nouvel,
no, the other one.
Renzo Piano.
Yes.
Renzo Piano. You know this very fancy building living practicing in Manhattan. You cannot imagine a better job. He had the best job that a journalist can have. He couldn't afford a home in Manhattan. He had to live in Brooklyn, and sometimes he moved to Queens, and he had to commute by the train 2 hours a day because housing in Manhattan were so expensive, even for him, who is a famous guy with the best job. Is it because Manhattan has no housing? No, it has a lot, but they are empty. Because it's more rewarding to have the house and have them empty. But the exchange value, do you remember the exchange value? The exchange value is so high. Just having the home and leaving that empty will increase my wealth a lot, so I don't need to have them occupied. So that creates that crisis. Oh, this is not part of the lecture, but I was discussing that in a dinner with Anna, Anna, and he mentioned that in France, it's illegal to have empty homes. In France, if you have an empty home for 3 months, you have to pay an additional tax, which is very high. And this is a simple rule. Huh? They say if you have an empty home, you have to pay a tax, period. So people, okay, I have an exchange value, but I have to put that some people there. So this rate is not that critical, even in Paris, because of that simple rule. So my point is that there are simple rules that we can apply in order to make the city more affordable, and I'm going to explain briefly 4 of them. Okay. First one, I have like 3 minutes per slide, okay, per set. So I will push that very quick. And if you want to see more detail, all of them have the link here that explain that very well, okay? Each one have 20 or 30 minutes of videos. If you're interested in any of them, I invite you to look at them. What is inclusionary housing? It's very simple. It says that when you build a home, you have to assign randomly certain percentage of the houses for affordability. So if you are a developer, and these are basically tools in the system, make that the city more affordable. So what will be that percentage? I think in Cambridge is 30.
I think it's 15.
I'm sorry, you're
And
right.
it's not random.
It's not. It's just
Go ahead, build tiny little studio apartments. And that can be your 15% of the total units.
and if you want to know about how developers are doing that in a bad way, I suggest you a documentary called The Ugly Door in Manhattan. There are buildings that they applied for inclusionary homes, and the buildings have 2 doors. One door in the front with fancy entrances, and that part of the building has gymnasiums with the gyms and all that. And you have an ugly door in the back for the area of the building that is affordable, and there are very shitty, tiny corridors with that studio. So you can also, but also you can demand on the opposite that you put that then randomly. So and and you can negotiate that number. In Somerville, there is 20, in Cambridge is 15, it could be 30, why not? It could be 40, why not? So what you have to ensure that the developer make a lot of money selling the other units, but leaving some of them as affordable for the city. That's a tool. It's called inclusionary housing. All of them have setbacks, as I explained before. So probably we can use Tuesday to discuss some of them in detail. So, and this is how, second one is called leakage fee. This is the most common applied. This is how we got money in Somerville. Imagine that you are a developer and you have to give certain amount of money for your development, like 10%, 20% to the government, and they use that for affordable projects, including landscape, including public projects, linkage fee. And there is a video about linkage fee, okay? So another one is called community land trust. You know that because some of you read that from the readings for today. But basically what this says is try to dismantle the idea that you have to own a land in order to have a home. So what is happening is that the community creates an organization and we own the land. And so the land is not yours, the land is by everybody. And there are certain benefits. One, you cannot speculate with the land. If you're selling your unit, you're selling your unit at the value that the unit has, but also you cannot speculate with the interest of the land because the land is owned by everybody. So now reducing that speculation lower the price of the house at the end. But there is other benefits in terms of design. Let me tell you an example. So imagine that we are a neighborhood and each desk is a plot. So and imagine that suddenly I need to create a new avenue with public transportation here, and the avenue is that big, and then I have to take this plot. So Abby, Isaac, and Oliver will be displayed as part of the project. That is difficult, huh? So if I build this, they will lose 100% of their investment in the traditional system or urban system. But if this is a community land trust, we can divide this value for the value of all of us. So if we have, I don't know, let's divide, imagine that is 5%, around 5%. If we divide 100 by the people who are here, so he will lose, even if he's losing his house, he will lose only 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. So the community land trust helped you to do certain improvement in the area without asking certain people to lose everything. Obviously, there are other complications that we can discuss about how we can make this project possible. But my point that CLT reduce the cost of the land, but also permit certain improvement of the neighborhood in the future. And there is another one. This is actually my favorite. It's called overlay district. We know that the current zoning system sometimes don't allow you. It doesn't allow you to do some improvement because it's so restricted. So what we created, what designers created, is the idea of the overlay district, where we can, and this is happening in many places. In Central Square in Cambridge, it happens. So you can select one particular boundary and create an overlay district where the zoning change for that particular area, and it's on top of the zoning system that is happening. That allows you to do certain adjustments in different areas. For example, including other tools like the inclusionary zoning, or including a CLT, a community land trust. But also, you can include other things because you can overlay the district to create a transit-oriented development project. So you can overlay this and say, even if the zoning doesn't allow you to create a transit-oriented development program, you can have an overlay district to create a program where you list public transit, walking and bicycle, open spaces, mixed use and density, active age, and public management. So you can overlay the district to improve, for example, transit. Or also you can overlay the district to create environmental protection plans with all of these strategies. So you want to increase the life of more than humans, but they're not human in this particular area. and you have a strategy to make it, you can have an overlay district to implement an environmental protection plan. Or you can have, and this is actually the case of Spatial Square, you can have an overlay district to create a business improvement district with homeowners, which you increase the idea of homeowners in retail store. You have more in Central Square, you have more stores owned by African American in this moment because they did an overlay district and they created a business improvement district where the community itself created the business plan for that area. So are you following me the logic of overlay districts, that you can start tweaking the zoning to do certain improvement because you discovered as a designer that is a good strategy to have a new ecological corridor, so you can overlay the district to create an ecological plan in order to put that, even if the zoning say that it's not possible. And so the question here is, what other design inclusionary system we're missing? So we're here to game the system and understand that these instruments are not there to be followed. Zonings are not that there to be followed, they are designed by us. How we can tweak them in order to increase affordability, because that's the big problem that we are having. And this is what I have for you today, and I have 5 minutes for Isaac and Sasha.
And John and Oliver,
Oh, and John and Oliver, yeah.
who are here now.
Yeah. That's, you're supposed to come here and recap the big question that we're getting answered and certain ideas for the analysis. Right.
Yeah.
Again, well, they are coming. So every single slide of this design instrument has a link to a video or to a document. If you are interested in go deep in any of them, go there, please. They are,
Okay.
So, I'll start off. So the first point that we saw going on during lectures is the systems that we live in have been designed to create inequality, and they've been inherited. One of the questions is, if the culture doesn't change, how can we make a lasting impact to these systems? Then the second point was that the neighborhood in which people live in is one of the biggest and opportunities that they have going forward. The question that I had was, how does transportation and connection to the larger networks affect this this principle? That's yeah.
And then for some like analysis steps, I would suggest looking at landscapes where many people can engage with the area. How can we like design spaces to incorporate and connect all these people? Like even like transportation and encourage communities to gather together. And then how can design increase the value of empower communities?
Yeah, going along with that, but another point is that urban infrastructure projects increase the value of land around them. And then such that how can we design, how can we advocate for more projects so that the land can increase in value in general, including land. And another point, last one, was that the problem with housing is not availability, but more so affordability. There are policies in place that can counteract this, but the question is, how can we as designers make sure that these policies, game the system to make sure that these policies are honored and enforced?
Looking at all of projects that can include more affordable housing, urban development, and
Oh, I have one comment before, can I jump? As we were talking a lot about landscape project in order to improve neighborhoods and to improve affordability through this mechanism and to provide more power to the people. Just a highlight here, be careful, because frequently architects confuse landscape with green. They are two different things. The landscape is greenery, but there are other stuff. So creating a new hardscape plaza is landscape. Create a new transportation system that affects the landscape is landscape. So my point that you can look at all examples not only of landscape as green space, but landscape as everything public that systemically can improve the life of a neighborhood as a case study.
So does that give you stuff to look up? Examples of, and then interrogate those examples to help us understand how architects can game the system. That's the mission. Advance our understanding of what can we do as architects to turn this around.
Yeah, that's important because so some of the lectures about racism and the color of law are so depressing.
Yeah.
So do we want to move forward? We have no time to be sad. We have to find ways to remediate the situation, and this is what you have to do.
Yeah, be sad and then wake up the next morning motivated to do something about it.
Yeah. So that's it. Remember, you have to finish the slide 8 argument. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.